My name is Penda Diakite. I was born in Portland, Oregon. I'm half Malian, half Swiss German. And my film, Tanti, Winter Vacation, showed this year in the African Film Festival. And my film is about a little 5-year-old girl, Tanti, and her friends. And it's their experiences as children in Mali, West Africa during their winter vacation. What inspired me to make this film was my childhood in Mali. I found it very valuable, and it's really just a beautiful memory. We had so much freedom and independence, and children are expected to be independent. They have their own little personalities, as you can see in the film. And I just wanted to capture this beautiful part of the culture, that kids can really be out and do their own thing for the day, and they're safe and part of the community and part of the culture. And I wanted to capture that positive part of Mali. How I got started making films was about in 5th grade. It was pretty random. I just asked my dad for his old video camera that he was about to throw away, and I started making my own short movies, and just continued from there on pretty much. And as I got older, it got more serious. So that's how I started filmmaking. But in general, art and storytelling is a really big part of my background. It's a big part of the Malian culture in general. Storytelling and all different types of artwork, dance, singing is all part of the Malian history. And I grew up with stories from my dad and uncles that were African folk tales that were passed down from generation to generation. So filmmaking is just my own way of storytelling. My entry into storytelling, as I said before, I grew up around stories, as it's a huge part of the Malian culture. And I actually wrote a children's book. In 3rd grade it began, and it was about my experiences in Mali, West Africa. I watched my little sister lose a tooth over there, and I decided to write about it because it was such a different part of, it was very different from losing a tooth in America, and it was really exciting for both of us. So it took a couple years, but when I was in 5th grade, the book finally got published, and that was kind of the beginning of my storytelling process through the arts. So,
what was the name of the book?
The book is called I Lost My Tooth in Africa. So at the 15th Cascade Festival of African Films, my film Welcome to Bamako, Mali was shown, and that was one of the first films that I was actually able to edit. My mentor helped me, or taught me how to edit through that film. And that was also through a child's perspective in Bamako, Mali. But that was because I was using my little sister and her friend as the main characters, and they just went around showing the everyday life of a young lady in Mali, pretty much. So little things like cooking, how you would bathe, washing the dishes, just everyday chores and everyday just experiences that you might experience as a young lady in Mali. And it was a great experience being able to show it on the big screen. It was my first full movie, so it was a great experience. I think I was 11 years old when that film was shown. Well, right now I go to California Institute of the Arts in Valencia, California, right outside of LA. And I'm in my 3rd year over there, and I'm majoring in film and video, of course, and minoring in cultural studies. And those are both very interwoven for me because a lot of my work consists of cultural awareness in general, through just my thoughts and experiences. And I'm also focusing a lot on women's studies as well, so my experiences as a female of color, both in Mali and the US. It's been a great experience being at Cal Arts and just being able to work with people that are passionate about the same thing as you. And as an art school, there's people in theater, dance, music, and so being able to work with these people for my own purposes, filmmaking, and for their own projects. It's a really great experience. And right now, I'm beginning my thesis project, which will be focusing on my experience as a woman of color in Mali and the US, and portrayals of women of color in the media, and my take on that, and my experience with that, and a little bit of critique on that as well. So that's what I'm working on right now, and I'll be working on that for a while. And after I graduate, I definitely hope to travel more throughout Africa. I've only been to Mali, my second home pretty much, and Senegal, because I have a lot of other family there as well. So I definitely hope to continue to travel, and definitely will continue to make documentary film work in Mali, for sure. African films through African lenses is sort of a motto for the Cascade Festival of African Films. And I think it's very important for films to be out there by Africans or people of African descent even. First of all, I think this country is definitely lacking in teaching cultural awareness, just teaching about different cultures in schooling. I think that's something that's very important and that definitely should be taught, so that you know from a young age there's not only one perspective on a culture or one way to do things or one traditional way to do things, that there are many, and there's no right or wrong way really. So that's definitely a big reason why I make the work that I make, just to open that up in general. And I also think that there's not enough positive portrayal of countries in Africa in general, especially information that we get within the US. It's not always positive, and you don't always get an accurate view of Africa and aspects of Africa and the cultures of Africa. So I definitely think it's very important for people that have either experienced it firsthand or just might have a different view of it in general to be able to share that, because those voices aren't always heard, and it's not often that you are able to hear them. That's an awesome part of the African Film Festival, that filmmakers from Africa or of African descent are able to get their voices heard. It's very positive, very needed. That's the great thing about the Cascade Festival of African Films, is that filmmakers from Africa or of African descent get their voices out there and get their voices heard, and their points of view are taken seriously. And it's not often that you get to hear voices from these people's point of view. So it's a very positive and much needed thing in our country. I definitely have a unique relationship with the African Film Festival, as I pretty much grew up around it, and it's a very valuable part of my life. I grew up around film as a result. My parents were part of the Cascade Festival of African Films since before I was born, actually, 3 years before I was born. So during volunteer works and meetings, I would be there crawling around on the floor. And when I finally got old enough, I volunteered helping out with newsletters and such during the African Film Festival. So it's been great to be around and exposed to these films throughout my life. It's been a great inspiration for me. Yeah, I'm a part of the film festival now as a filmmaker as well, so it's an honor. The Cascade Festival of African Films is special and unique because it allows people of African descent to express their own voice through film. What I like about the Cascade Festival of African Films is that not only is it showing these films by filmmakers that are from Africa or of African descent, but they also have these filmmakers here to be able to discuss the work and discuss their experiences with Africa or being of color, and that the audience is able to interact with them and understand more about their film and their thought process and where they're coming from. And something else that's very special about the Cascade Festival of African Films is that unlike other film festivals for people of color, or by people of color, it's focused on filmmakers that actually have a connection directly to Africa. So they're actually either from Africa or have experience living in Africa or with Africa. So I think that's very important, as it sheds a very unique light on the films that are shown. It was great, actually, being able to interact with the audience after my film was shown, and it was interesting to see what their thought process was about my film as well through the questions that they were asking me. Some of them were asking how true to the children's lives my film was, because a lot of the time kids might show off in front of the camera if you're filming them all the time. So it was great to be able to talk about that and let them know that it was more than just a filmmaker and a subject's relationship. I actually had a deeper relationship than that, as I still hung out and hung around these kids without the camera as well. So they were comfortable enough to just let me be there and film them and get the true experiences from them. And I think that's an important part of my film, that it's very true to what's going on in the culture in Mali. So, as a filmmaker, my process, well, I honestly just have to be very patient and let it come to me. I'm a very hard worker, so I would love if I was able to plan out what film I'm going to do and how I'm going to go about it. But my best work, I really just have to wait and let it come to me. And a lot of my ideas just come through my experiences or just thoughts that I might have just randomly thinking about life in general. And that works well for me because most of my work is centered around my experiences and the experiences of people like me that might be bicultural or might be from a country in Africa and might be struggling with the same issues or have the same questions. So I definitely love to make film because I can give a voice not only to myself but to people like me. So a lot of filmmakers say that finances is the main struggle that they face during filmmaking. And I mean, I do agree with that statement because, I mean, you do need money to make films in general, be able to pay actors, get your film distributed. And it does seem like it is harder for African filmmakers because of this. I haven't experienced too much of it recently just because at my college I have all the equipment and I have so many willing people to help me out and be part of my projects as well as me be part of their projects, and building relationships with different artists in my school. So far with my film work that I've been doing at school, it's just been a great experience because there's so many people that understand what I'm doing and love to do what I'm doing. But I'm sure after I graduate, I will face it. So a lot of the time, filmmakers have bloopers or funny behind the scenes behind their films. And definitely earlier on when I was making films with my little sister, of course, there were a whole bunch of bloopers. It was hard to get her and her friends to pay attention, actually, and it was pretty frustrating for me, but looking back, it was funny. And actually in my film, Welcome to Bamako, Mali, I had a whole reel of bloopers at the end of them just messing up on their lines and goofing off as kids. In my recent film, Tanti's Winter Vacation, I I can't say that there were exactly bloopers because it was a documentary and I was just documenting their life. So what I think the community comes away with after viewing a film from the Cascade Festival of African Films or just attending films from it year after year is definitely a more positive outlook on Africa, definitely possibly more educated on Africa since they're able to ask questions and interact with these filmmakers or just learn through the films in general. So it's very positive. I definitely think people come away with a much broader perspective of Africa and possibly the world, and that's a great part of the Cascade Festival of African Films. You learn a lot just by coming to a showing of a film. Where I am right now is more focused on documentary just because there's so many aspects of the Malian culture that are also small beauties of the culture that I want to get out there. And so just the freedom and independence of a child's life is just one of those things. So there's still a lot that I would love to document and that I have footage of that I'm continuing to edit on just the beauty of the Malian culture. And I think that's especially important now since Mali isn't getting the most positive coverage now. And it is unfortunate about what's happening in Mali right now. But I mean, it's great to see the positive parts of the country as well. So definitely documentary filmmaking. And as I said before, I love to continue to travel and learn more about cultures throughout Africa, as every single country, even divisions within the country, have very different cultures. So I would love to do that, and if I learn more about that by living in the cultures, I'd love to document that as well through documentary filmmaking. And so right now, I'm more focused on documentary filmmaking, as I would say. Yeah. But I'm definitely open to narrative filmmaking and possibly more experimental filmmaking, as my school is very experimental in their filmmaking department. So it's opened my eyes to a whole array of types of filmmaking that I'm interested in. So yeah, it's great for me just being able to film over there because I didn't live my complete life over there. So I'm learning a whole bunch as well from cousins and family and just people around me while I'm filming. I'm learning so much, so it's great. I definitely have a different perspective from the time when Welcome to Bamako, Mali was shown to this film, Tanti's Winter Vacation. And it's ironic because they're both pretty similar. It's both through the eyes of a youngster in Mali. But at the time of the first film, Welcome to Bamako, Mali, it was more of just a fun thing. And because I was younger, I didn't think much into the beauty of the culture. I was younger. I didn't think about all of that. It was just normal for me, and I was just saying, hey, this is what we do here compared to how I do in my life in America. These are the differences. It was a lot more cut and dry for me, and it wasn't much of it wasn't really about educating the audience about cultures. It was just showing, hey, this is a part of my life. But now I find even that film is just so important just for education in general, learning about other cultures. So yeah, my viewpoint on the content of my filmmaking is very different, as I find it a lot more important now and something that I strive to continue to do. The Cascade Festival of African Films is so educational, as people are learning so much just by viewing these films on different cultures and different countries from Africa, from all over Africa. The Cascade Festival of African Films is very warm and welcoming, as first of all it's free, which is great because it's very inviting to anybody to be able to come and learn through these beautiful films that are shown. And also it's just so welcoming because the artists are here, and it's very personal. You can talk to these artists and relate to their films and relate to them and just learn more in general. So it's a great experience.